So in part 1 we finished off the interior and now it is time to move on to the exterior. The disassembly process starts the same way, removing the floor pan, the wheels and the interior tub, which will be set aside as those are completed already. And then I need to carefully start removing all of the plastic parts, the windows and all trim around that does not need to be stripped with the chemical paint stripper. With all the plastic body parts now removed, I can move on to stripping the paint on the main exterior piece, which is made out of die-cast metal. For this I'm using some Rust-Oleum paint stripper. I'm not sure what is available in your local area, so you might need to source a couple of things. I have tried various different ones. Most of them suck terribly. This one actually works pretty well, so I'm going to be sticking to this one for now. I'm just dunking the body into the paint stripper, turning it around so it is fully covered, and then taking it out after a while once the paint starts bubbling up. Then of course that all needs to be removed. This can be done with some water, as that deactivates the paint stripper and also starts removing all of the excess material that is now left on the body. A good bit of cleaning later and I can move on to sanding the bare metal body to prep it for the primer to stick to it. For this I'm going to be using one of the new sanding sponges from Streetblisters. They have 400 grit, 280, 320 and various different other grits. I have found that the 280 works best in case of metal, and it kind of feels like the 400 that I'm used to from other brands. So even though it says 280, let's just call it a 400 grit, as that is what I would normally use with other sandpaper brands. For the primer, since the body is fully stripped, I'm also going to cover the inside just to prevent it from any rust or corrosion that might appear on this. I'm not really sure if that will appear, but just to be sure, giving it a light coat of primer on the inside takes care of that. And then slowly moving on to the exterior as well on the outside, just a couple light coats of gray primer to start off with. The gray primer is applied. I let that sit and cure for about 30 minutes and then moved on to the white primer. Now the reason being, I really like the gray primer. It sticks super well to the bare metal, and I'm not really sure the white primer acts the same way. So just to be sure, a good base coat of gray primer is applied and then a final coat of white primer is applied to make it nice and bright for the following color that will go on top of it, which is Porsche Racing Yellow. This color was not yet available from the standard list of colors from Streetblisters, so I requested a custom mix and they added it to their range. So if you're interested in this specific color or any other color, feel free to contact them and they can probably mix it up for you. So as usual, I started off with those hard to reach, easy to forget spots to get a nice coat on that before I forget them, and then move on to the rest of the body. The color is covering super well, really quickly in the first coat. Another coat was added later on, and that was fully covered. So after applying a second coat of yellow to the body, that was fully covered and I could set that aside for a couple of hours to cure. In the meantime, I moved on to prepping and painting all of the other parts, like the wing mirrors and also the wing, which needed to be painted black for some carbon fiber to later be applied on top of that. After that was said and done, the roof and the rest of the body parts had enough time to cure, so I could carefully start masking that up in order to paint the roof black. Simon, my buddy, requested for the roof to be done in carbon fiber, matching the wing and also the wing mirrors. So the roof was first masked off and then painted black to give a nice base color for the carbon fiber to go on top. I unmasked all of the body parts and then let them cure for a couple of hours before moving on to the carbon fiber decal application. In this case, I still needed to make a template for the roof, so I stuck on a piece of masking tape, lined it on the edges, and then transferred it to the carbon fiber decal from Scale Motorsport, and then carefully cut it out and started applying and conforming it to the roof. Now that all of the carbon fiber has been applied, it was time to add even more logos on the exterior. Simon saw some renders of the new 992 and it had some cool decals for on the side and also on the hood or the front trunk, the panel where in normal cars the engine is and in Porsche just a trunk. These are actually stickers that he had custom made. I have no idea where, but they look really good but are a bit thick as they aren't decals, they are actually stickers. They needed to be carefully cut out along the edges as close as possible so I don't have any excess material, and I could then carefully stick them in place on both sides and also on the front center. Now since these were stickers and not actual decals, they didn't need any time to dry and I could move into the spray booth for some clear. Now I'm going to be sealing this in a bit more than usual as the edges or the actual material of these stickers is a lot thicker than an actual decal, so it will leave a little bit of a raised edge around it, but it is a good idea just to seal it in so they don't fall off over time or you can accidentally just pull them off as you don't want them. You want them to stay in place, so a couple coats of clear were applied on the stickers specifically, and then of course the rest of the body was covered as well, and also a light coat on the roof and side carbon fiber decals. The first coat has now been applied to all of the stickers and decals. That was settled in for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I moved on to the final coat of clear covering the entire body, giving it a nice glossy finish. So the clear coat has now been applied. I let it sit and cure for a couple of days before touching it again, just to make it nice and hard and not have it soft and be damaged during the next stages. As the next stages require a bit of masking, I don't really want to ruin it, so giving it a lot of time to cure is a good thing. The side and rear bumper actually have some lower trim pieces which are black plastic. These were carefully masked off, as you can see, and then painted flat black. Some of the other black trim pieces, like this one around the side air inlet, were a bit too hard to mask off, so I just took out a small brush and carefully painted them by hand. Same goes for the air outlets on the rear bumper. All of the painting and additional detailing has been completed, so I can now move on to doing the final assembly, putting everything back together as it should. One final thing that I wanted to add was a bit of Panelline accent color. The Panellines were pretty nice and deep, but still a bit too yellow in my opinion and could use a little bit more shade. So I added that Panelline accent color in there, let it cure, removed the excess, and finally added the rear view mirrors on there to finish this project off.